Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by Fluent Capital. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Alex Powell here with me today, and he fell in love with real estate investing very young. And by age 16, he'd actually read most of Robert Kiyosaki's books on wealth building. For anyone that knows Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he went to Mohawk College to study mechanical engineering technology, and later on went to Lakehead University with a Bachelor of Engineering, Construction, and Technology. But out of university, he really focused on saving every penny to buy his first house, which he fixed up and rented out. And then he duplicated the process a number of times. And then he eventually got to the point he was able to leave his full-time job. And now he just focuses on real estate investing in Canada as well as the United States. So thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing fantastic. And how are you?
Awesome. So obviously we talked a little bit about what you were doing before real estate, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about how that was always integrated, because you've got a unique story in the sense that you discovered the concept of this much earlier than most people. So what was it that really attracted you to that? Like, did someone put the book in your hand? Like, how did you think at 16?
I was working at my uncle's shop. He was a tool and die maker. And I come from kind of a family of tool makers. My grandfather was one as well. And I was blown away at how much these guys worked. My father, he's actually an engineer, and he was around for hockey games and stuff like that. But I noticed a lot of the guys in the shop were working crazy hours, and the quality of life wasn't the greatest when you're working like that. So at a young age, I was 14, 15 years old working in the shop. And this was like weekends and summers kind of, right? But
I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah, exactly, full time, skip school. But at a certain point, it was like, okay, is this kind of how I want my life to live, or like be like? Do I want a family? Do I want to be around for the hockey games or whatever is going to be happening? So it really started to change my mind in terms of finding different avenues for generating income, side hustles, somewhere, entrepreneurship. And it's kind of like, the law of attraction. When you start to open your mind to these opportunities flow in. It just so happened that my cousin-in-law had an auto shop. I used to take my car over there, and he used the hoist, and I would fix my own car. And he's like, I just bought a triplex in Toronto, and I'm fixing it up. And you should read this book. It's a really good book. And that's where he gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I read that one, and then I ate it up in a week. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I think I'm onto something here. And why doesn't anyone talk about this? And then I came back.
Why isn't this in schools?
So I came back to him. I gave him his book back, and he immediately gave me Investing in Canadian Real Estate Using the Acre System by Don Campbell.
Yeah.
He's the original founder of REALTOR, the Real Estate Investors Network in Toronto. And so I took that one, and the way that the book's laid out, it's like a story of a guy named Richard, if my memory serves me correctly, and it very nicely lays out the thought process of buying your first property. So I studied that till nauseum, and then that's what eventually I was hungry for it all through school. I had to finish school and to get a job to start building some credit, and that. But even at a young age, I'd have a credit card, take it to the beer store and immediately pay it off. I never carried a balance, never carried myself into debt. So, and then eventually, even my first property that I bought, I was getting, by the time I finished the renovations in the basement, I added a bathroom and a bedroom. I was getting paid to live in my own house. Yeah. And you see the fruits of your studies and your labor in the money that you have in your bank account. Holy smoke, I have a house, it's paying itself down, it's appreciating value, and I'm out of pocket, no money. In fact, I'm getting $600+ So I was like, I gotta keep doing this. So really spurred it on.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, you mentioned obviously that you were working for a little while. How long were you working in your career before you ended up shifting over into full-time real estate investing?
I was working for 4 years.
Okay, so not long. And then what size was your portfolio at that point when you left?
I had bought 2 buy and holds. So I had 2 holds, and I had bought 2 flips.
Okay.
So that was first and second property wasn't quite enough to carry a salary.
Yeah.
So hence why I actually ended up going and getting my realtor's license, because I felt like I needed some sort of a transition between going from salary, cushy, I've got benefits job. Yeah. Then eventually getting free from the golden handcuffs, I guess you could say. So the first flip I did was, I call it the school of flip, because I made like $250 at the end of a whole summer of slogging on this bloody property. And then
Yeah.
the second flip, I made more than a year's salary, and I was barely on the tools.
Yeah.
So it was just a whole mindset shift. It was like, okay, that's
Yeah.
it. Time's up.
Nice. And how long ago was that?
Well, that's got to be like 10 years ago
10
now.
years ago. Yeah, I just wasn't exactly sure how long that was. So what
Yeah.
does your portfolio look like today then?
So we've got just over 80 units across the South Ontario. So we've got apartment units, 8 plexes are our largest currently. We have a number of duplex, triplexes, fourplexes. I think I've got like maybe 2 single families. We have a 5-plex in New Brunswick.
Okay.
Actually, we bought a set and scene. Still haven't seen it. We've owned it for like 3 years. It just keeps doing its thing.
Yeah.
And then we actually just bought and sold 2 properties in Columbus, Ohio, just to create a proof of concept and help us figure out our networks and vet them. So,
yeah. Now, can you talk about how you shifted over into multifamily and just in terms of the process of acquiring these properties? Because you started obviously just with your house hacking in the beginning, but then how did you shift over into these larger opportunities? And like, what was your process in terms of engaging investors, assuming that was what you did as well?
Yeah, great question. Actually, I wish more people kind of ask that kind of thing. How do you?
Well, because you can say what they did, but how did they do it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you get a lot of these like, okay, you're dealing with just duplex and a single family, but there is this like step, this mental, right? You kind of, the way I see it is, here's like a ceiling of achievement. You're kind of bouncing off, and you need to break through. The second you do that, then it's like, okay, it kind of opens up your space a little bit more. So, for us, it was, we had acquired a lot of these duplexes, triplex, single families, and you hear from everybody, like, the effort and the work that goes into managing a duplex or a triplex is honestly quite comparable to the effort that it takes to manage like an apartment.
Yeah.
It's just, you might have to tack a 0 onto your fix. That's it. And I get that is, painful. However, your cash flow, especially in today's climate with interest rates, is protected a little bit better. Our cash flow on our multi-units are like 4-figure cash flows a month.
Yeah.
Our cash flows on our duplexes are kind of like a bit above break even, right?
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you the economies of scale. You can start to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still maintenance and other issues. We have a property management company, so we take care of these properties for our partners. But the initiation in it was literally just kind of holding your breath. Like we had made a lot of in jumping in. I wish I could say it a little bit better, but we had done so many of these, and so we had made very good money doing conversions right at the peak time. And now for a lot of people, like they don't work. They don't work here in Hamilton. Even if you buy it really well, so that you have minimal money, you're not going to cash on the back end.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know now are in hot water because of these deals that they bought, thinking that interest rates are going to be staying at the same rate that they are, and now they're like minus $1,000 a month or something on their property.
And that's one of the big things or challenges with Ontario. It's like, I'm sure you can go to some of the smaller towns and stuff where things are obviously much, much lower. And that could even create some other challenges when you consider vacancies or what kind of work opportunities are and stuff like that. But that's ultimately why I think a lot of investors look outside of our backyard here, because you can't necessarily cash flow. You've got the LTV. There's obviously a lot of other things kind of coming along with that. But looking back to where you started, like, did you also join any education organizations or groups, like, or did you just literally like wing it all on your own?
No, at the very beginning, I was still at Acon and I joined Fortune Builders. So I don't know if you've heard of them. Than Merrill and JS Asian. They used to be on this show called Flipping Houses or something like that.
Okay.
It was one of the original AME shows or whatever.
One of the OG Reno shows.
Yeah, exactly. There was like a couple of these guys, and they were just like 3 dudes that would go around and like flip houses, and they'd throw in some drama in the episode kind of thing. And so they had one of those seminars that came to town. So I got, I was on someone's mailer and they reached me out. So you go to the seminar and it was like $100, and you go, when you're at the seminar, they pitch you for the
I've been through that model with another organization.
And I remember I brought my cousin along with me because I just, wanted someone to come along. He was into real estate too. And I remember him talking to me in the parking lot, like, don't do this. It's going to be such a there's other ways to go about this. Yeah, okay. So we hugged and said goodbye. As soon as he left, I went in and signed up for it. And the thought, it was 20,000 American. It was literally like everything I had.
Yeah.
But I needed to put that pressure on me. I needed to commit to something because that wasn't easy money for me. Like I was working a salary job. I think I was making like 16 or $17 an hour or something like that when I first started. So it was a lot of money, partial credit card, whatever.
Yeah.
But the thought was if I could do one flip that made 20 grand, then I could get that money back. And at this point, I had already bought 2 properties. So I kind of got the gist. I needed to find a way to accelerate my learning. And so it was actually very good. I love fortune builders. I'm not so much heavily involved in the community of fortune builders. However, it did do a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I find like with a lot of these things, like Rich Dad Poor Dad has one. You got Keyspire, you got, Well Simple, or I forget what there's another one out there.
There's Wealth Genius and Simple Investor.
Yeah,
you kind of put them together.
Love Genius, exactly. So a lot of these groups have it, and then you get these mixed reports of people like, oh, this is a scam. Is like nothing out there is actually a scam.
It's not a scam, and I think the people that say that are the people that sign up and they're not prepared to take action. Totally. So yeah, it's going to be a waste if you go drop 20,000 or 30,000 and you do nothing.
Yeah.
And they say it's a scam. Like, no, like you have to be ready and prepared to actually do something with what you're about to learn, right?
Yeah. And for me, I felt like I could always go back, and even to this, funny enough, when we went into the US, I like reopened up the module and it had like all the forms I needed, everything. I'm like, oh, this is a dream.
Perfect. Just what I needed.
Yeah, 10 year ago, Alex, thank you for dropping 20K in this.
Yeah. No, I think as long as you're investing and you're ready, I think that that's a wise thing to do. I did the same thing when I joined Keyspire going back 5-ish years ago, that I just didn't know what to do next. And, their price tag at the time was 35,000. So, it wasn't something I signed on the dotted line, but I went out and tried to find people that were members, not commissioned sales consultants, and just to validate like what their experiences were like. And I actually found a woman that's the mother-in-law of one of my staff at the time. And she was, she's actually their biggest cheerleader, I think, at this point in time, and biggest advocate. But she kind of said the same thing. If you're ready to take action, it will be worth it. You'll make the money back probably in a few months. She went from something like 9 doors to 54 doors, and now she's doing like land development, big capital raising and stuff like that. So, it was enough to me that I was kind of like, okay, went back, did it, went to their investor summit, and then I took big action and it did a whole bunch of different things, right?
You still part of Keyspire?
I am, yeah. So I'm part of they've got like a big, robust Facebook group. So it's just, there's a lot of opportunity, connection, even just through the community and stuff like that. So, I think going back, they could have maybe structured the membership a little bit differently, which we can talk about offline, but it got me started. So at the end of the day, I think that's really the most important thing. Now, going back to some of your lessons and learnings, what would you say are some of the challenges that you experienced while you were growing your portfolio?
I think that one of the biggest one, and I'm still guilty about it, and the more I'm kind of learning and getting older and hopefully wiser, and so absolutely who knows, that's for someone else to judge. But I think that there is this. I grew up always thinking that if you want to do it right, you got to do it yourself. And part of me still has that kind of internal it's easy to jump in to fix something.
Yeah.
However, if you look at the scale, you have to rely on
other people. Yeah.
Yeah. Our team that you can trust. And like, for example, a very clear example is like here in Hamilton, I typically have been very involved in our flips. I do construction management.
Yeah.
Partially it's because I also do like it. I do love the technology side and find different ways to make buildings more efficient, whatever.
Yeah.
However, when we did flips in Columbus, like I don't have that option.
Yeah.
You just jump in my car, drive 6.5 hours. So I spent a lot of time vetting good people out there. And to the point where these last 2 flips, I had never seen the property, never met the contractor face to face, never met my realtor, never met the wholesaler, never met and we netted between the two about 45K.
Yeah.
For literally like setting up and trusting and empowering people, So it's funny, I have folks here that have lived or have worked with me for years now, and I kind of we go job to job together, and they're almost pretty much full time with us. And I find sometimes, without knocking their skills, because I wouldn't keep them if they're not good, they are good. But sometimes they're like, Alex, what do I do here?
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, no, no, you tell me what you're gonna do, and then I'll
Yeah.
say yes or no if it works, you know? And so empowering the people and being, it's really started to make me think about leadership in a different capacity. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a very important thing. But mistakes wise, if I quantify my mistakes, it would probably make me throw up in my mouth. It's it is nothing
But it's
comes
all part of business. It's the cost of doing
totally.
business. I
Yeah.
think I found that challenging as well. Like I had my own business for 18 years and we really started to grow our team about 10 years in and I had to like loosen the reins off. Like I was brought in for management and operations. Well, I had to drive the sales of the business. So I needed people to go out and do the work. And it was really hard because it's still like, our brand reputation on the line, my relationship with clients. And, it definitely was hard at times to, it got better as time passed. But, in the beginning, I'd be like, I'll just go into their email on a Saturday morning. I'm just going to see what's happening and do some of their work. And thinking like I'm helping them get a leg up on the week. But meanwhile, they're probably like, what is she doing?
Yeah, or she's
And
like,
it was
having
really
it
hard to
just
let go in the beginning. And so,
Screen will take care of that. She's got it.
yeah, so it took time to like trust the team, develop the right systems to training and onboard them properly and develop playbooks and stuff like that. But it's all part of like growing, like as young entrepreneurs, like no one's sitting here teaching it to you. Like you're kind of learning by the seat of your pants. So
What I find is funny is that there's this, like, my wife and I were business partners and we have staff, but there's this fear of getting too big because big things fall hard kind of thing, right? And it's, you actually have to aim to build big so that you can step back.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be so crazy or so off the cuff, because there's that point though where you are kind of your chief cook and dishwasher, even when
yeah,
people are being brought on board, because you have to develop the system, you have to train them, you have to hold them accountable, and then
yeah,
you have to give opportunities so that people feel like they're growing within you.
yeah,
Is an important thing. So
yeah. No, I
very,
think
very
that's big.
fascinating stuff.
So
Yeah.
I guess now when you look at your portfolio and the growth that you have experienced, what would you say you're most proud of?
I'm most proud of my family. I will say that. That's probably not the answer you're looking for because you're looking at it from a business standpoint. But I think that it's allowed us to do a lot of things. I'm
Yeah,
proud of the fact that like I get to be home for dinner every night. I'm proud of the fact that I got to take the boys to. So I got 4, 3, and a 1 year old actually
yeah,
turned one today. So young family, very, energetic boys, all three of them. But it's at this stage, I can imagine how challenging it was for my grandfather who worked like 16, 17 hours a day.
yeah,
And my grandmother was one of, or like even my uncle who like he puts in a lot of time. It's a very
yeah,
demanding industry, and you gotta kind of put the hours in. But real estate has allowed me flexibility in that sense.
yeah,
We make very good income. We have our future that's being set up. We don't have RSPs. We have properties that we
yeah,
came down.
yeah,
And the future looks very bright in that capacity, even with interest rates.
yeah,
So I think that's what I'm most proud of, is that making smart decisions earlier on, and that was a byproduct of reading the right things. I see a lot of 20 some odd year olds, that are just kind of sitting idle, or they're finding themselves, and
yeah,
it's taking a while to do that kind of thing. It's like
yeah,
you have to somehow apply yourself. I'm a firm believer, so any of your young audience, if you're in your 20s, make as many mistakes as you can. And I'm not saying stupid mistakes like go and
yeah,
blow your credit card to nauseum and then suffer in debt for the next 10 years. I'm
yeah,
saying try a different job, try, work a side hustle, work 3 side hustles,
yeah,
go evenings, weekends, find things that you're passionate about.
yeah,
So work doesn't have to feel like a slog. Work should excite you because you're going to do
yeah.
it for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole purpose of, even having this podcast. It's not that, everyone's dying to necessarily own all these things. Like it's more the freedom that comes along with it and the lifestyle freedom that it gives you and the return on time and stuff like that. Right. So it's just kind of creating that legacy and that the total like lifestyle for yourself. But on that point, we're just going to take a really brief word from our sponsors and we'll be right back.
Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations.
We are so excited to announce the launch of Fluent Capital, a competitive investment and lending solution to all of our clients. We're providing competitive investment rates as well as alternative lending options for first and second mortgages.
Our mission is preservation of capital through rigorous underwriting processes to ensure we preserve your investment. So what makes Fluent different from other investment firms? We have a low fee structure with full transparency. Our investors receive the interest income as well as all the other fees that we charge to our borrowers. That includes administration fees, renewal fees, discharge fees, and origination fees. At Fluent Capital, we're all about risk management and preservation of your capital. Fluent Capital, we speak your language.
Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Alex Pal here talking to me about how he's grown his portfolio fairly significantly over the last 10 plus years across Canada and also the United States. So I know we were talking a little bit about your journey. And I guess one big question I have for you is, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you so far as a real estate investor?
Craziest thing. I mean, there's, in terms of like jobs or like things that we've done to properties.
Yeah, like anything maybe that you've encountered at a property or their tenant or an employee, like anything that really jumps out that really, knocked your socks off.
We've done some pretty gnarly properties. Even our designer here locally is like, you guys always buy the best properties. And he means that facetiously in the sense that like, they're not the best, they're the worst. So
you're going to turn them into the best. Yeah. They've got the most potential.
Yeah, we've got some really, really cool before and afters that we showcased them actually some on our website. But we bought fire damage, crackhead infested. Like we bought one of our apartment buildings was an old rooming house that was completely neglected, and the previous owners had bought it off of the previous guy who had it tight, buttoned up, everything was good as a student rental. They bought it and they let in some riffraff that pushed all the students out, and they then announced that they were going to try and get some government grants for keeping it as a safe injection site. And this whole argument for safe injection sites is probably the stupidest thing ever. I'm going to say that to anybody who's listening. This property had not an ounce of copper left in it. The water was shut off. The hydro was shut off. You would walk into this place. There was burn marks everywhere from cigarettes. There's people passed out all over the place. It was terrible to see. And my heart breaks for these. Like, addiction is not something that I, think of lightly. I think it's terrible. However, it's fascinating to me as a real estate investor to be exposed to that.
Yeah.
How frequently it's great. There's an idea of just taking this property, cleaning it out, kicking it out, and kicking everyone out, and then that's it.
Yeah.
There was a legitimate tenant. People had just come and gone. Between us getting the property under contract and actually closing on it, there's 2 overdose deaths in the building.
Wow.
Just like you kind of see that, like you're walking through it and you're just like, it's like you're walking through like Resident Evil with the movie or something like that. And it's just eerie, it's sad, and it's like, you think that the establishments can do better, and they can do better, but also, and the guys that had bought this started it with good intentions. It's like, we're going to do something good for the community. And every single neighbor in that place 3 or 4 times would come to visit us to say thank you for doing something about the problems that were
Yeah.
businesses would have to close early. Things were getting stolen from their back warehouse areas and stuff like that. So it was good on that sense. Anytime we needed water or power, if we were going to like a shutdown, like, oh, we got water, come on, just bring your hose. They connected for us. Everyone was super helpful and thankful that like somebody's coming and doing something about it. Because they don't. So to me, that still is one of the craziest things. And I can appreciate that there are sides of this political debate that are like, well, look at you, the greedy landlord who's doing this, but it's that affects everybody. People don't
I mean, I understand that. And on a small point, I have a friend that her husband's a paramedic, so he had to go to a safe injection site, and I think he was triaging like 3 people that were overdosing at the same time. And there's obviously like a lot of things, and it's just, I don't know at what point, I don't know maybe why the government or an organization needs to like provide something like this. Like, I don't know, like you think like you'd want to focus me on getting people off of those things, not like just providing them with the space to enable them to do it. And I don't know, maybe that's politically incorrect to say that. So I don't want to get any like like I don't really know, but I mean, at the end of the day, like I can understand what you're talking about and how one house or like one bad egg in a neighborhood can really affect everybody, right? Like I even have a home very close to us that the property owner turned it into a rooming house, and there's, I don't even know, maybe 8 or 10 people, and we live in a pretty good community, but this one house is like, why? I don't even know if this is legal, but it's really kind of having that impact on everyone. So
what's interesting is you look at the Google Maps, you know how like Street View, they have like the screenshot of the pictures, and you can go back like, I don't know, 8 however many years, and like anytime the Google cart comes, they take a updated screenshot, and you look when it was owned by the previous owner, it was like beautiful. The shrubs were very well kept. The grass was all it wasn't garbage, and everything went downhill. It just goes through this hell period where the property looks gray.
Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on who the owner is, right? And what they want to do and what they want to put into it. So I guess that being said, in terms of the knowledge that you've acquired over the last several years, what would you say is some of the best advice that you've ever received?
Well, one is just to take action. You have to, if you think that real estate investing is going to be this, you can pay to just play, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And that kind of ties in with the second best piece of advice I've ever learned and internalized, is that your best resource is being resourceful. And I think that's something that's really resonated with me, because as a real estate investor, there's an entrepreneurial flair to it where you have to be creative. You have to find a different way to do things, whether that's in your financing, in your construction, or in finding deals. Like, where are you going to find properties? So you're ready to buy. I'm a real estate investor. I just read Robert Kiyosaki's book for the first time. I'm ready to go. Now what? You're just going to scan online and buy the first thing you see or not. You have to start to look and feel and make connections, and don't be afraid to make phone calls. Especially with the texting world nowadays and messaging, people are afraid to pick up the phone. I don't understand why. It's very common. Just pick up the phone, call somebody, build a connection. Coffee.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. Now, obviously, you've been working on building your portfolio in a couple different places. What would you say is next for you? Do you have a specific number of doors or like value that you're working towards?
Actually, we are in the process of working towards, we don't have a deal in place, but we're setting up all the groundwork for it. We're going to be looking at like the 50 plus units in the US. And so that's the next big leap. And so I'm very excited for that. Because once again, like I was talking about at the beginning, there's that ceiling of achievement. And what does that look like? People do it. So what's different where they do it? All it is a different thought sequence and a different process and a different way to analyze the property. And then you're raising capital. You're having different conversations on that. Luckily, we have a lot of experience, using other people's money, and we have a very good reputation in the investing world, and we have a lot of joint ventures who've made a lot of money with us. So that part is probably the least of my worries. It's more about finding and vetting the right deals and how we
no, that makes perfect sense. Now, in terms of your financial freedom number, just on the personal side, is there anything that you've defined as something that you want to see in your own life, for your family, and for your legacy?
Like a quantifiable X per month dollar?
Like would it be a cash flow number? Would it be a volume of the portfolio? Like, you know?
For me, yeah, I would say it's definitely more of a cash flow number than a volume number. If I can get the same cash flow with one big kahuna deal, sure.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, I know that the quantity of units can often seem.
Yeah, people like to say they've got like 200 doors or 1,000 doors.
Yeah, exactly. But I could imagine 1,000 single family homes, I would rip my hair out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's I think that the thing that I look for, and one of my guiding principles, is consistency.
Yeah.
And I think that it's almost a fallacy in my own life, and I acknowledge that, is that I like consistency, but I'm always jumping into something new to try it and do something better. However, I think.
Well, you're consistent with that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that that's the thing that drives me, is that every single month, all of our expenses and our lifestyle should cover itself by passive income.
Yeah.
And then the rest there is just gravy.
Yeah, awesome. So in terms of motivation and inspiration, are there any particular quotes that really resonate with you?
Yeah, actually, there's one that I've been saying frequently. There's a Warren Buffett quote that I absolutely love. It's that the stock market is the only store that people run out of when there's a sale. And it applies to real estate too. So I think that for those folks that are interested in real estate investing, learn the real estate cycle and find when you think might be the best time to buy based on where we're at today. Because I think that a lot of people right now are like, interest rates really stink, and like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till interest rates come down.
Yeah.
What happens when interest rates come down? Property values go up. So, look for those opportunities. Look for where you can. What are the three categories? There's the innovator. There's the person who replicates them, and the idiot. That's another Warren Buffett quote. I forget what it is. I'm not butchering it. But you don't want to be the person who's coming in at the trail end because you finally have built the courage and the market's already starting to shift on you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the people that probably bought really high at the beginning of last year, and then if they're selling shortly after, they probably lost their shirts in a lot of ways, right? Yes. Now, is there anything in particular you'd like to leave with anyone that could be listening or watching right now?
No, I think that for the most part, if anybody wants to have a chat or wants to connect based on investing in the US or being a part of a bigger apartment building, we are going to be doing some financing rounds for sure. So I'd love to connect with like-minded people or accredited investors, of course, and look at future opportunities, because I think that there is a lot of growth that's going to be taking place, even generally with the distribution between renters and owners right now. There's a lot of young people who are surrendering to the idea that they might not become homeowners. It breaks my heart. And I think that that's a mindset ordeal. However, if people just decide to rent and travel more instead of buying a house, what does that do to the supply and demand for rental housing?
Yeah.
In this industry, there's going to be opportunity to grow. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. And for anyone that is interested in learning more, connecting, what's the easiest way for them to get in touch?
I'd say you can follow us on Instagram. It's PAL Property Solutions. There's an underscore between either PAL or Property. I forget which one it is, but also we have a website. It's palpropertysolutions.com. There you can check it out. We have blogs. We do before and afters. I've got some videos too on what things look like when we do invest together. Those are probably the two easiest ways. And if you fill out any of those forms, those emails will typically come to me anyway, and we can always book a 15-minute call and see how we can help.
Perfect. Great. So we'll include all of that in the show notes below. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to be with us for today. And of course, if you liked what you've just watched or heard, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And we'd appreciate reviews as well. You can follow along at Inspire to Invest Podcast on Instagram. And above all else, make sure that you keep in mind when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit.
Thanks again to Fluent Capital for bringing you this episode of Inspire to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspire to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended
that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.